The Lord be with you. Dear friends, what we think depends on what we know, and our judgment of events and situations in turn depends on our thinking and knowing. So we may argue that what we think is limited by what we know, and what we know is limited by what we think. We can learn how what we know affects what we think about others from the interaction and the experience of Peter and Cornelius in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 10. What Cornelius knew and thought came from his vision of an angel of God, and what Peter knew and thought came from his knowledge of the law. How Peter thought about non-Jews was limited by his knowledge of the Jewish law. Later on, Peter learned in a vision that God is bigger than religious laws or ethnicity. In Acts 10:28, Peter said, "You know that it is unlawful for a Jewish man to associate with or visit a Gentile, but God has shown me that I should not call any person profane or unclean." What Peter couldn't think and know from the law, he learned from divine revelation. His mind and heart, thinking and knowing, were transformed by divine love and revelation, so much so that Peter could proclaim the risen Christ in the language of faith and love. And following his renewed encounter with God, Peter made this pivotal proclamation: "In truth, I see that God shows no partiality. Rather, in every nation, whoever fears him and acts uprightly is acceptable to him." While Peter was still speaking these things, the Holy Spirit fell upon all who were listening to the word. The circumcised believers who had accompanied Peter were astounded that the gift of the Holy Spirit should have been poured out on the Gentiles also, for they could hear them speaking in tongues and glorifying God. Dear friends, faith is a way of thinking and knowing. It has its own language, and it is not Hebrew or English, Hebrew, Greek, or Latin. The language of faith is love. Human beings are not defined by their language or ethnicity, but by a loving relationship with God. Authentic thinking and knowing are the fruit of minds and hearts that know and think and speak the language of love. Love breaks the barriers of religion, ethnicity, tribe, or tongue. Divine revelation expands the human capacity to know and to think uprightly. Without divine interventions, we would be wearing our superiority complex on our sleeves and mindlessly rub others up the wrong way because of our race, language, or ethnicity. But no human limitation, both in knowing and thinking, can thwart God's salvation for everyone, for anyone who believes in the risen Christ and Lord. Brothers and sisters, the fact that you are a believer does not mean that your thinking and knowing will always be in sync with God's plan and purpose. We may be inflated with an air of superiority because we think and know so much about so little. But there are many things that we do not know and which we will not understand until we are at one with God in faith, hope, and love. Peter and the circumcised members of the early Christian community were condescendingly shocked to witness the outpouring of the Holy Spirit on the Gentiles. What became of their thinking and knowing? The all-inclusive God shattered their unredeemed pattern of thinking and knowing and initiated a divine relationship with the people they couldn't visit or interact with. God is full of surprises, and divine love is shockingly transforming. Both Peter and the Christian community were shocked by God's self-revelation and the gift of the Holy Spirit to the Gentiles. We are not the ones to determine whom the Lord should redeem or save. God shows no partiality. The Lord does not ration the gift of the Spirit. Whom God has favored and blessed is favored and blessed indeed. Our God reveals himself in love beyond human expectation. He forms a loving relationship with all his children through the gift of the Holy Spirit, Word, and the Sacraments. Listen, our all-embracing God, who reveals the mystery of his unconditional love to the human race through his Son, Jesus Christ, is constantly shocking us to our bone marrow. So be attentive to God's vision and revelation. Like Cornelius and his household, it takes just one faithful believer to bring God's eternal salvation to a non-Christian family or community. You may not have a Christian friend around you, but the Lord can shock you with his vision and revelation and teach you to know, to think, and to speak the language of faith. In God, our heart and minds are transformed to know and think according to divine will, so that we may find a home and happiness in the community of the saints forever. God bless you.